The first light of dawn barely touched the horizon when a strange sound echoed through the nearly silent police station in the mountain town of Pine Shadow. It wasn't the sharp, hurried knock of a person. This one was slow, heavy, almost purposeful. Officer Lena Carter paused, her pen hovering above the paperwork in front of her. The sound came again. A knock, then another. She hesitated before getting up, a faint unease prickling her skin. What could it be at this hour? With a cautious step, she approached the door, flashlight in hand, and peered through the glass. Her breath caught. There, standing tall on its hind legs, was a massive black bear, gently pawing at the door as if asking to be let inside. Its dark, intelligent eyes locked with hers, not full of aggression, but something else, something urgent, something desperate. Lena stood frozen for a beat, unsure of what to do. The bear's eyes never wavered, its body tense, but it made no move to approach her. Instead, it huffed softly, its breath misting in the cool morning air. Then, without taking her eyes off the animal, Lena called over her shoulder, "James, Noah, get over here." Within seconds, officers James Pierce and Noah Callahan arrived, their footsteps quick and light on the linoleum. They stood behind her, equally stunned, staring at the bear in disbelief. The bear continued its rhythmic knocking, its massive paws gently making contact with the door. "Is it asking for help?" James asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. Noah, always the skeptic, shrugged. "Probably hungry, or maybe it's just curious." But Lena felt it in her gut. This wasn't just curiosity. The bear's movements were too deliberate. She looked closer and noticed something peculiar, something hanging from its mouth. A torn strap of a backpack, streaked with mud and faint traces of blood. The bear dropped the strap in front of them, then stepped back, its gaze still unwavering. Lena's heart sank. "This isn't random," she murmured, carefully picking up the strap with gloved hands. "Something's wrong." The bear growled, a low, mournful sound that resonated through the cold air, before turning and lumbering away. It paused at the edge of the woods, looking over its shoulder, as if waiting for them to follow. "You're seriously suggesting we follow it?" Noah asked, a hesitant edge in his voice, but he was already grabbing his gear. Lena didn't hesitate. "We don't ignore this. We follow it." The trio quickly geared up, knowing they were on their own for now. They radioed for backup, but in the dense forest of Pine Shadow, there was little hope help would reach them in time. They followed the bear's trail into the woods, the early morning light barely reaching through the thick canopy above. The air was cold, and the ground was slick from the recent rain, making every step treacherous. The bear moved with remarkable ease, its large body gliding through the underbrush like it had done this before. It stopped at intervals, checking to see if they were still behind, then resumed its slow, deliberate pace. "This is strange," James muttered, as they came upon a spot where the earth was torn up, claw marks deep in the soil, and branches were scattered everywhere. There were signs of a struggle, frantic, desperate. The bear's huff echoed in the air, a sound that urged them onward. In the distance, the rush of water grew louder. They pushed forward, and before long they came to the edge of a steep ravine. The trees parted, revealing a heart-wrenching sight. At the bottom of the ravine, lying on a narrow ledge, was an elderly man. His hair, once silver, was now matted with mud and blood. His leg was pinned beneath a fallen log, and the rising water threatened to swallow him whole. The officers froze. "Is he alive?" Noah whispered, fear creeping into his voice. Lena's heart pounded as she scanned the scene. "He's barely conscious. We have to get him out of here." The bear, ever watchful, paced along the edge of the ravine, its agitation growing. It let out another low sound, glancing back at the officers and then at the injured man below. James quickly radioed for rescue support while Noah began unpacking the climbing gear. The operation was complicated by the steep terrain and the worsening weather. Lena's hands shook as she secured the ropes, knowing the urgency of the situation. Amid the debris, she found a familiar sight: hiking gear scattered in a haphazard mess. A frayed climbing rope, a torn backpack, just like the strap the bear had brought them. The clues painted a grim picture. The bear stayed close, its presence constant but non-interfering, watching every movement with an almost understanding gaze. It seemed to know the gravity of the rescue and the delicate nature of what they were doing. James, spotting something through his binoculars, called out, "He's alive, but we need to move fast." The bear's steady gaze never wavered. It remained close but didn't intrude, its anxious huffs a silent encouragement. When they finally pulled the man to safety, he was barely coherent. His first word was a whisper. "Sophie." The bear's ears perked up at the name, and it gave a soft whimper. Lena's breath caught in her chest. "Sophie?" she repeated, looking at the bear with wide eyes. "That's her name." The man, who was identified as Jack Westbrook, a retired wilderness photographer, had spent years photographing the local bear population. His journal, found among the wreckage, detailed the years of trust he had built with Sophie, a bear he had first encountered as a cub. Over time, their bond had deepened, a quiet companionship formed through mutual respect and understanding. Jack's injuries were grave but treatable, and Sophie had stayed by his side through the night, keeping him warm and alert until she ventured off to find help. Her trips to the police station, each time carrying the torn strap as a plea for assistance, had been her way of saving him. The story of Jack and Sophie became a sensation, capturing hearts across the world. Footage of Sophie knocking on the police station door went viral, a symbol of the incredible empathy and intelligence animals are capable of. Experts from around the globe descended on Pine Shadow to study Sophie and her extraordinary actions. For Lena, James, and Noah, the experience was life-changing. Their hardened perceptions of the natural world were forever altered, their tough exteriors softened by the raw emotion they had witnessed. Interviews followed, and the trio shared their story with the world, a story that defied explanation but was undeniably real. Sophie returned to the wild, her mission complete. Trail cameras occasionally caught glimpses of her revisiting the ravine, as though checking on the place where she had saved Jack. Jack, recovering in the hospital, spoke often of Sophie, his gratitude endless. "She didn't just save my life," Jack said in one interview. "She showed us all what true compassion looks like." The tale of Sophie and Jack transcended the boundaries between human and animal, reminding everyone that empathy is not limited to one species. In a world often divided, Sophie's actions proved that kindness knows no boundaries.